Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Joe Gannis. I'm with the Biamp marketing team, and I'm thrilled to welcome everyone to this webinar. This is for our partners. Our design team manager, Brett Minton, will be reviewing how to streamline your project quotes. Okay, let's get started. Brett, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for coming today to the webinar. Again, I'm going to talk about something called a partner requested quote form, which is our ingest on the design team for getting sound masking and paging quotes for any projects around the world, wherever you're located. First thing is, what is a PRAQ? It's an acronym and it stands for Partner Requested Quote. And essentially that's the first stop for your project to get both a quote and a design. And I'll dive in as well on what the differences are between a design and a rough order of magnitude and a bill of material. But before we start that process, I'd like to give you info on where to find it. And a lot of people have seen in the past, we've done some updates to our website and things of that nature. So I've given both of our landing sites. The top one, as you can see, has a biamp.com domain. And what we like about that one, about that first domain, is you log in with your credentials. It's also the image you see on your left, but you log in with your workplace credentials and your Biamp credentials, and you get to actually bypass the entire first section of the form, but it also remembers previous entities of your requests. So if you're going to look back and say, hey, did I submit this? Yes or no, it has a repository of that. And the second piece is the tried and true, the one that has been around since its existence, the cambridgesound.com /quote. You can still get everything you need from there, submit it from there, and get the automated message. But the Biamp.com, you do have to have existing credentials, whether through Biamp, through some of our training, free online training, or through an existing customer record within Biamp. So I'm going to go through what the PRAQ is from start to finish. There are 4 categories to fully submit a request into my team's department. And those 4 categories are your company information, your project information, anything that we need to know to get you a design and quote, and any project files that we can review ourselves or in conjunction with you to keep your project moving forward. And the reason I break these down into 4 separate categories, because it's completely fine if you only have a portion of any of these categories. We at least need something in the queue so that we can contact you either via email or phone, whichever you would prefer. And I'll go through that process as well and what that looks like from your standpoint. So the first item, or the first category, is company information. And you would think that this would be a little bit obvious, but from time to time it's not. So I like to reiterate by saying your company is actually your company, not your project company. I get a lot of, Bank of America from Sir John Smith at Integrator Company B. So I just want to reiterate that that is your information and no one else's. It's not a piece of information that we need from your contact. It's on your project. It's actually your information so that we can give you a call or email. The next, what I would consider the most important, is everything you see here that has a purple arrow pointing to it is what my team deems priority 1, and that is the square footage, the system preference. Do you need a budgetary estimate or a full design, and when would you like all that information back to you? Now, when your quote is needed, it does say selection date is not guaranteed. We will reach out to you almost instantaneously saying, hey, I don't know if we can meet that. A lot of people, think we have 24/7 support. We are all located in the US, and most of us are in the Eastern Standard time zone. So there is a little bit of buffer time there. Some people put in PRAQs over the weekend and want a next day turnaround. Sometimes that isn't possible. So we like to set that expectation. The square footage, we like to know if it's a larger or a smaller project, just so that we can prioritize that and prioritize it fairly quickly. I do want to note everything on this category 2 section that has a red asterisk is required before you can move into the next category or submit it. So, please feel free to fill those in first so that you can make sure it doesn't give you a hiccup at the end. But in terms of system preference, this one is what we typically will dictate through the architecture, whether we can or cannot based on your request. So the direct field passive emitters and the direct field active emitters, those are the same actual chassis of the emitter itself, just different functionality and a little bit change in size, but overall same connectivity. Same thing with the indirect loudspeakers. Some people can have that, but the architecture itself won't allow. So we like to know that ahead of time so that we can keep you in the know of what we're thinking, how we're thinking it, and using our expertise to guide you in the right direction. You'll notice a section that says, does your project need paging? The reason we like to require that is some of our speakers don't allow for paging as easily. So again, just to not put the cart in front of the horse, we like to get that ahead of time to make sure that the system preference and the system functionality match each other, and so that we can put you on good footing to succeed from the start and have the least amount of hiccups for your project. So all the other items on here are, when do you plan on ordering it? When do you think you'll need it? How many floors they are? Those are just making sure that the files that you put in match what you're looking for. Every now and then someone will say, hey, my project's in this part of the country, but I accidentally gave you the wrong project. I'm sorry. So we just like to double check that. Things happen, and that's okay. The next category, you'll notice that it's fairly easy in terms of which you would like. Each one of those categories, open office, private office, conference room, hallway, reception, and other, have a drop down that have a matching item that is in these categories in the middle, masking only, masking music, masking paging, and so on. It gives you each individual choice so that you can describe that in the field itself. So if you want masking and paging in the open office, but you only want masking in the private office, you can select that. And you'll notice in category 3, we have a design and quote section. And what that allows you to do is that little box, that empty box you see, is a text field that has no character limit. So if you want to say, hey, Brett, I want emitters in open office and I want indirect speakers in the private offices, that is where you can give me anything and everything that your project detail requires in that field, and it gets ingested directly to the team. So I highly encourage you to, give me a 500-page essay about your project. I love reading. I love reading about your project and making sure that I get you what you need the first time so that we can, keep winning projects and you guys look and feel good about submitting into the portal. So from there, we do a lot of different things. But one thing we do is we ingest very large files for you to use at your discretion. So back to the box, you can also give us an FTP site. If you got 3 or 4 gigs worth of items, you can share that link to us, and we can download it and search through 1,000 pages. You know, never too much information. I want to reiterate that. You know, there's not, you know, you can give me plumbing sets, you can give me floor plans. We obviously, you know, if you can look through this uploaded file section, we obviously prefer CAD files and high vector PDFs, but if you can't get us that, we try to ingest all file types. We know that, you know, every site is different, every GC is different, so we work with a wide variety, but the ones that get us quotes and designs fastest are typically high quality electronic PDFs and AutoCAD files. We do take RVT files as well, but if you notice, up to 5 files totaling less than 50 megabytes, that is 50 megabytes per file. So, you know, if you do that, that's 200, you know, if you do the math on that, that's 250 megabytes total. We have since, as of a couple weeks ago, updated that to 100 megabytes, so up to 500 megabytes. So if your project or file size is larger than that, feel free to email me directly. I'm going to have a link to both myself and how to get a hold of my team as a whole. You can also shoot us a FTP site or, you know, Google Drive, anything like that, just to get it into us in the queue, and we'll go ahead and pull all the files down that we possibly can. Now, to mention the ceiling information from category 2, I'm going to dive into that a little bit and why that is important and why we kind of make it required. I'm going to again hit on the asterisks that you'll see from start to finish, but you know, why is ceiling information important? It's because it determines not only the system type that we can or cannot use, but it also dictates the spacing. So even though your end user or a client of any nature of yours has a requested system type, the architecture might not allow for it. A good example would be, you know, a warehouse with a 40-foot ceiling. We can't hang our classic emitter in that setting. We would need to hang those down to at least, you know, 17, 18 feet for them to be effective, both in masking and paging. So we would have to come up with a more unique solution. And again, Biamp, we have a wide variety of speakers and speaker types and generators and amplifiers. So we definitely have a solution for you. Now, the biggest question that I get in this form is that next category, which is plenum height. I gave a little description of what the plenum height is because a lot of people don't really correlate the two between the difference between the roof and a plenum. So, you know, a plenum is exactly as it reads, bottom of the ceiling to the grid. You know, that could be 2 different heights or more than 2 different heights. But the main question we get is, what if it's open deck? Does it have a plenum? And the answer is yes, but it's deemed an open plenum. And a lot of you already know that, and I'm kind of regurgitating that idea, but I just want to say it out loud, not only because it's a recording, but there's nothing wrong with being educated. I learn something every day in this position, and I just want to continue to share. Now, in that ceiling type, there's a drop down with lots of different ceiling types, one being mineral tile, one being fiberglass tile, gypsum, hard deck, wood ceiling, or other. And that's what fills in the next category, which is combination or other. And again, every field that does not have a drop down arrow on it is a field that has no character limit. So if you want to fill every single item into every single category that is not a drop down, I highly encourage that, because we love information on the design team. There's no limit to what we can ingest. And so Feel free to give as much or as little detail as you possibly can, because it just helps your cause on getting things turned around even faster. And from here, hey, Brett, I submitted the form, now what? Within 20 to 30 seconds, 60 seconds max, you should be getting an automated email that looks similar to the thank you message that is currently on your screen. Hey, this is an automated email. It's been submitted. If you do not receive this within a minute of submitting your order or submitting your request, know that something has happened, or that maybe we have an incorrect email address for you or an older email address in our system for you. So please feel free to email csm-praq@biamp.com, and we can dive in and look to make sure that we got it. Because this automated email does get put in spam filters from time to time. So feel free to call us, email us just to say, hey, Brett, I just want to make sure I got it. And I will email you back saying, hey, it's in the queue. We have you, and here's your estimated turnaround time. I know you said the 9th, but we're going to get it to you on the 7th. Is that okay? Just another piece of confirmation. And from there, the reason I want to include this slide is so that everyone kind of knows from start to finish what happens both internally and back to you as the rep or our integrator, what we call partners on this side. But it starts when you submit a PRAQ. I just mentioned the confirmation email, but it automatically goes into a hopper that me and my other 9 colleagues on the team go out and review each individual PRAQ as an individual item, nothing else. And we look through to make sure we're not missing any information. Now, because you can put ceiling information in there, and then in the combination or other field I mentioned earlier, you could say, hey, this is just a guess. Okay, that's fine. Different projects are at different stages, and we welcome that. But that's why we like to put our quoting system and our estimates into different categories. We call them levels. My team always strives for a level 1 design and quote. A level 2 is needed if you're saying, hey, we want to get a quick number because we don't know the coverage yet. We just know that they're looking for something you guys can offer, and we just want to, start the conversation. Great. Level 3, we do less than 5% of the time. It's normally a pricing exercise. We call it a rough order of magnitude on this side of the equation. And those are typically left for, hey, we don't know if we have the budget for it, but we're kind of interested. Okay, great. We can give you a rough number. It'll be between X and Y, and it should cost you around, blank per square foot, whatever that total may be. It's different per, parts of the country and other things like that. But after we determine which level of deliverable we can or cannot give, or should not give, we have an internal review as a team. It normally involves your manufacturer's rep, your area sales manager, your field sales engineer, and someone from myself or someone from my team. And the reason that's important is we want to have a unified response back to you or others that you work with, but we also want to make sure that we are A, competitive, and B, successful in making your request a reality, right? And then from there, it goes directly into a rough order magnitude, a bill of material, or design and quote. Now, you'll notice that at the very bottom, I skipped over missing PRAQ information, requested if needed. That's when you'll get a phone call from me or one of my colleagues saying, hey, I noticed that you put in your request that it's 3 floors, but I'm only seeing floors 1 and 2. Is it 2 floors, or did you, happen to forget, floor 3? It didn't get uploaded fully, or, hey, there's no masking on that floor, or whatever have it. It's just to check in, just to make sure that what we're reading and seeing is fully accurate. Now, for those of you that prefer not to fill out the PRAQ form, that's okay. You have a manufacturer's rep that can assist with that, that's local, and hopefully you have a great relationship with them, but they can also submit it on your behalf. And I'm going to go into, after the deliverables, who actually gets the automated message and what that actually entails. So let's go along for the ride. Back to that level 1, level 2, and level 3 deliverable. I'm going to go through those individually so that you can kind of see our expectation as a team and what we always strive to complete. First is the level 1, the full system design in quote. And I have examples after this slide of what that looks like and what you receive. But there are some minimums of receiving a design in quote, and sometimes we can change this up a little bit, but we try and always require that because the amount of effort it takes to complete that can be a bit challenging. But we always try and get ceiling information. Even if it's a guesstimate, we'll write that on your quote. Hey, we assumed it's a 9-foot ACT, but if different, we'll need to redesign. We just put a caveat on there to make sure that everyone has that expectation that we designed on these parameters. But if everything's clear in the coverage areas, everything is chosen in terms of system design, indirect or direct, we typically run around 2 business days to turn that around. Now, that clock only starts when we have all the information. Back to a couple slides ago, I said, hey, if we're missing information, that once we have all the information, that's when the 2-day clock typically starts. That's why I always encourage getting all the information first, or reaching out to us directly and say, hey, I don't have all this information, but can we make these assumptions to get the ball rolling? It's much easier to ingest and get something returned if we can thumb through that before it hits the queue. So it's typically 2 days, but we're always committed to doing this, and we try and always give a system design. Level 1 is what we do 90% of the time. Level 2 and level 3 are the other 10%, 5 each. But for those of you that haven't seen this previously, if you can see what you're looking at, it's defined zoning, it's a defined speaker layout. We typically hold the wiring off until we get the AOK from you guys to say, hey, this is it. We're gonna purchase this, and can you go ahead and start wiring it for me? And of course, we love to do that. But it shows how many items you have and need for your project in the key, as well as descriptions and legends that get you there. But the thing that everyone loves, what's the number? What's the number, Brett? And the level 1 deliverable is exactly this. I've scrubbed some things, put examples of who is part of your project. This is if you're in the central part of the US. What it'll look like, it gives you product descriptions, its details, and its exact quantities and costs. That's what we always strive to do, as well as you can see that we put parameters here, right? I've got QT emitters, I've got how many floors, I've got if it's a full design or a budgetary, and other project details listed above, right? In terms of the difference between a level 1 and a level 2 is not a whole lot. And I'm going to go through that now, but a level 2, what we call a bill of material, is also known as a budgetary estimate, what we call a budgetary estimate. And the only difference between a full design and a budgetary estimate is we have assumed instead of verified information, or we have verified information that has a quick turnaround. Hey, Brett, I totally forgot about the sound masking. I've got all my low voltage already keyed up, ready to go, and we just forgot about the sound masking. Okay, no problem. I'll get you a budgetary estimate and a quick turnaround. Now we can reprioritize things based on the need and want, but we try and always get that turned around in the business day. Same thing here. we're always committed to doing that, meeting deadlines, but things do come up. So we try and keep that in the process here. But for budgetary estimates, we don't provide an installation plan, and that's what the difference looks like. I use the same layout, but what we give as a deliverable back to you to say, hey, the blue and the green are the areas we covered, and the difference between the blue and the green are the zoning. So, hey, I'm taking 2 zones. You notice that there's a square foot number inside of these boxes. I don't know if that's large or small for you guys. I apologize. But there's no speaker placement. But we take these square foot numbers and we're able to get an estimate of how many speakers are actually being used on the project. Now, from this standpoint, the quote here for the level 2 deliverable looks the same, except for this little box up at the top that says budgetary estimate. And the reason we put that is typically when we do budgetary estimates, the information is not fully vetted. Meaning, hey, Brett, we haven't walked the site yet. Hey, we're planning on going in a week or 2, and we want to be able to present something so that we could throw it in the budget to see if they have the money to spend, right? And we totally understand that. And this is our how do we help you get started on your project that just no one's in the know yet until you do a site visit. And this is how we kind of beat everybody to the punch, right? And so the quote looks the same, the dollar amount is the same. I don't know if anyone kept on to that, but the dollar amount's the same. You just don't get the dots on the paper, as we call it on this side. You don't get the actual speaker layout because we were trying to turn this thing around a little quicker. Now, this is the 5%. The other 5% is level 3, the rough order of magnitude. And the positive about this is we try and do this in the next day turnaround because it's normally a budget. We give a X and a Y. This is your low number, this is your high number, but it should be somewhere in between these two, right? And I make the caveat that, hey, these should not be used for purchasing, but just as a conversation starter to say, hey, it's typically going to run you around X per square foot. And here's what we're going to do. The big thing is we don't really know what we need. It's all assumed. The square footage is kind of unknown. We're not really sure if what system type or functionality they're looking for. So we give a rough estimate, and the deliverable for a rough estimate and a budgetary estimate is identical because we need to know kind of where, how to start the coverage areas. We need to make sure that we have enough equipment to cover what you're trying to look for. So we give that, but instead of putting it into our quoting tool, we give a rough number because it will encompass typically more than one product type or a hybrid system. So we typically try and stay within the our most expensive system as opposed to our least expensive system. So we give that range. And what you'll notice that you don't get here is an actual quote, and that's because we haven't chosen a path yet. That's typically where we see. Actually, that's not typical. That's every single rough order of magnitude that I've done. We're not positive on what we're looking for and what functionality we're looking for. So based on the square footage, it should cost between this and that. And that's where you get the rough order of magnitude cost. At least it gives you an idea of how much the project should be regardless of our offering. Now from there, this is a big ticket item for me, as opposed to, hey, what, I requested this and got something different. Why is that? And I'm going to go through that. I requested a full design and didn't get one. Why is that? Either A, it wasn't submitted, or B, we reached out and you couldn't get it. That's okay. The other item that we do is too aggressive of a turnaround. Because I do want to mention this just because it's being recorded. If you fill out a PRAQ at 11:59 on a Monday, you can request it for Tuesday. And that might be a break in the system, but it's a little difficult to, do a 10 floor project in less than 8 hours. So it does get a little bit aggressive for the team and how we're able to complete our jobs in a timely manner. But we do reach out and say, hey, this is what we can do in the time frame that we can do it in. And it's typically not a hassle, but I do just like to mention this and put it on the recording to say, hey, sometimes these things are aggressive, so we can give you a budgetary today and then give you a full design by end of day Friday, for instance. And so from that, every now and then we get corrupted files and things like that. So it just kind of turns back to what I had mentioned previously. The clock starts when we have all the information, because nobody knows what technology is going to do, what files are going to accidentally mess up, things like that. So I do, before I move on to the next, I want to touch on this fourth bullet point here where multiple solutions are requested for the same project. We will, as a team, we like to give a recommendation based on the architecture, whether we think that the architect is going to balk at, cutting holes in an expensive wood ceiling, or hey, we can't hang our indirect speakers at this aperture or something to that extent. But we always try and stick within architectural environments and what they require so that we can make sure, especially if a project is specified, that we can stay within those constraints. So we'll always give our recommendation, but if it's outside of what your recommendation is, we can always figure out a unique solution that meets everyone's needs. So I do want to point that out. So if you're contemplating between indirect and direct, there is a drop down in the system that will guarantee a call from someone on my team or someone within your sales team that will say, hey, what do you think you're leaning to one way or the other? And if you truly don't know, we'll work with you on getting multiple solutions, but it's pretty rare that we can meet your timeline to give two separate items because it's two separate designs and it's typically two different types of functionality. So we try and keep that in the back of our mind before giving two options, because we know no matter what, one option is typically better than the other. So we always want to lead towards the best. So from there, the big one, hey Brett, they thought they had this budget, but they don't anymore. Is there any way that you can help me with a revision? Of course. We are always happy to help with revisions, especially if it's adding coverage or adding functionality or upsells, that kind of thing. But from the design team perspective, we want to make sure that both you and your clientele get exactly what they're looking for. Because again, Biamp has a wide variety of products. We definitely have you covered from start to finish. So from that standpoint, our expectation as a team is we handle them case by case. So we try as a team to always target 48 hours at the very worst. Now, if it's, hey, Brett, can you remove these two private offices? I'm going to be, anytime it's removing areas of coverage or updating pricing, hey, Brett, we thought we were going to purchase it, but the quote expired after 30 days. Do you mind, giving a refresh? We're going to do that same day. No harm, no foul. We're just going to stop what we're doing and do it for you. But in that same scenario, you got multiple solutions. Hey, Brett, we want to switch from indirect to direct. That's a full design, and we put that in the queue as a resubmission. It won't take the 2 to 4 days, but we set the expectation with you. Hey, I'm currently looking at a 1.5 day turnaround time. Is that okay with you? We always run it past you to make sure it fits your timeline. and then we could move stuff around as a team. So from that standpoint, I want to make sure that it's put across that revisions happen. They'll always happen, and we know that they occur, at least half the time. But we try and curb that by having the conversation with you on the front end of your project. So never feel overwhelmed or hesitant to request a revision from the team. So, request away, and we're happy to help. So from that point, I just want to point everyone, and again, I'm going to give you access to this in a PDF form of some important websites that you could use, keep in your quiver to use in your next projects or ideas, or even in searching in things that are outside of sound masking, right? I want to give everyone access to that. And the first one is our main site, again, is how to get us anyone on the team. And the other is the CSM website that takes you to some of our legacy items, as well as our original form, because the two forms do look a little different. So I just want you to have that. But some of these other resources, if you haven't heard of Cornerstone, I would highly suggest just going to biamp.com/cornerstone, and it will give you everything under the sun: install docs, tech sheets, OEM manuals. It even has a lot of the case studies. I put the case studies direct link in there in the PDF set, so it takes you directly to the white papers. But Cornerstone has everything, anything and everything that we've ever published as a company, or the wide variety of companies. So if you're looking for an old Cambridge item or an old apart item, anything like that, it'll be in there. Now, me being part of the design team, I take this last link with a excited smile on my face. And that's because a lot of Bixie guys are probably on this call, and a lot of designers and engineers like myself are on this call. We have a full array of 90% of our products, if not more, on the design library and BIM library. And the reason I want to mention BIM is it allows you to put the actual object in the space to make sure you are obstruction free. This is something that we kicked off a year or two at Infocom, and we get tons of attaboys and thank yous for that. So feel free to download until your heart's content on that as well. So it's there for the taking. Feel free to reach out with any questions with that. But I just want to thank everyone for attending the webinar.
If you have questions about Biamp's design services, please reach out to Brett or myself, or visit us at biamp.com or on Cornerstone for technical support. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day.